Divorce
This
is one of the
podcast is
most
for
challenging
informational and
transitions
entertainment
in
purposes
life,
only.
and without the right
Information contained
guidance,
herein
it
is
can
not
quickly
legal
turn
advice.
into a
If you need
disaster.
legal advice, please
Welcome
seek
to
an attorney.
Dodging Divorce Disasters, the show that helps you navigate the legal, financial, and emotional pitfalls of divorce before they happen. In each episode, I sit down with a top professional in the divorce community to hear real-life war stories, cautionary tales from the trenches of divorce. But I won't leave you with just the horror stories. The experts will break down exactly what went wrong and, more importantly, how you can avoid making the same mistakes. Whether you're in the early stages of separation, deep in the process, or supporting someone through it, we are here to help you move forward with clarity, confidence, and fewer regrets. I'm your host, Lori Hawkins, and I am a local expert in divorce real estate. I am so excited to be sharing these incredible professionals with you. Let's dive in. I am so excited today because I have Kim Coleman here with me. And this is kind of a different podcast from what I normally do, but because you don't think of somebody that does property insurance as being in the divorce niche, but you really are, right?
Oh, yeah. Yes, ma'am.
So, Kim, I want to just thank you for being here. And, I was thinking back, I always try to think of how we kind of came together. And I'm sure it was through a mutual friend, or maybe it was a networking group that we both.
I think it was through the Lake Norman Chamber.
Okay, a networking group, yeah. But I'll tell you, that was just like, the networking group was number one, great. But number two, Kim is just an asset to have in your pocket. So just tell everybody who you work for, like the areas you work in, and what you do specifically before we jump into the meat and potatoes of this.
Sure. So I work with Fogle Insurance Group, and we're based here in Huntersville, North Carolina. And we cover all of North Carolina, South Carolina. We cover Virginia and Tennessee. There are other states that we do work in. It just depends on what our client needs, where they are. I've been doing property and casualty insurance for almost 3 years. And before that, I did Medicare insurance. And before that, I owned a couple businesses myself.
Okay, I see. I didn't even know that either.
Oh, yeah.
You are just a very, very dimensional person, Kim Coleman.
Yes, I am. Some experiences, girl.
You do. Okay, so before we get into the deep subject of divorce, I always like to find out a fun fact about my guest. And you had put down a couple things. One, you went skydiving. Is
Yep.
that correct?
Yes.
When
For
did
my-
you do that? And tell me about the experience.
I did that for my 50th birthday, and I was so excited to go. It was a tandem, and so we went to the airport. It was a little local airport. Went up. I was so excited. The guy was starting the countdown for us to jump out of the airplane. He was going too slow. I was ready to pull him out of the plane.
Oh my
So
gosh.
that was fabulous. I loved the whole thing going down. I would do it again in a heartbeat.
Okay, so I mean, honestly, were you scared, or did
No.
you really weren't? You
No,
weren't
it was
scared like the
exciting.
parachute wouldn't open or
Not at
anything
all.
like that?
No. So, and the best part was the free fall. I love that the most. When he jerked the cord and the parachute was released, you do get jerked for that. And then he goes, "Do you want me to do tricks on the way down?" And I said, "Do you want me to lose my cookies on the way down?"
So jumping out the door of the plane, that wasn't what you lose your cookies over. It
No,
was
not
doing
at all.
tricks
It
going
was
down.
if he started doing this kind of thing going down, and I just had to keep my eyes on the horizon.
Oh
So,
my
oh yeah,
gosh.
I'd go again.
I bet it would be beautiful, but I can't imagine. And I also, you didn't even put this down on your little list, but I also know that you are a comedian too. Like you do real straightforward stand-up comedy, right?
I did for a long time, for about 12 years. I toured, and still sometimes I'll go do events or an open mic now. I don't do it as much as I used to, but that was great fun. You have to be able to think on your feet and write. I wrote a lot.
That is amazing. How I saw also that you had written down, how does all that relate? And tell us what laughter yoga is.
Oh, so that is a form of yoga. You do not have to wear workout clothes, yoga clothes. You do not have to have a mat. It is spontaneous laughter that is created without using humor or jokes. I use breathing, deep breathing. Make suggestions, and we do different exercises to create the laughter. The brain does not know the difference between created laughter and laughter that comes from a joke or a comment. So it really works your core. It's great for patients that are in dementia care, PTSD. We do a lot. I do it with all ages.
Really? That is so cool. That is very cool. Well, okay, as I kind of alluded, you don't think of property insurance as being anything in divorce. I have been specializing in divorce real estate for the last 4 years. That's basically all my business is these days is divorce real estate. And I have learned so much from you. And the things that I have learned, I know other people do not realize or do not know, because there are so many different things going on. I have personally been through a divorce. You have too, right?
Yep. Yes, ma'am.
And I know that when I was going through the divorce, there were so many things being thrown at me at one time. You know, asset and debt division and child custody. Well, that wasn't part of mine, but I know it is part of it. A lot of people. There's just so many things. And sometimes the insurance is something that it's not top of mind.
No.
And you don't realize the havoc that can come when it's not properly handled.
Right, right.
So, we're talking about homeowners insurance, right? We're talking about on the house.
So when I work with home, auto, umbrella policies, jewelry policies, jet skis, we call those toys, boats, things like that. Mostly you find the issues that you have in the home and the auto or the umbrella policies. And that's where we have to go through and make sure several things have happened before we can either move a policy or write a new policy. And sometimes your lawyer is not going to know to tell you this.
Right. No, that is exactly why I am doing this with you, because I say all the time that there is not one person that is an expert in every field.
Right, right.
And family law attorneys are highly intelligent. They really are. But they don't work in the real estate market day in and day out like I do. So I know things they actually don't know when it comes to the market. They
Right.
definitely don't work in insurance.
No, no.
And so you know things.
Yeah.
So please tell the people that might be listening, give them tips, tell them things they need to make sure that they are doing if they are in the process of a divorce. What do they need to make sure they do?
Well, the first thing they need to do is make sure they know where the home's going to go, or they know where the cars are going to go, how they're going to be divided up. And they need to make sure that the cars are registered in each person's name, because I can't take a vehicle that is in the husband's name and move it to the wife's name until that registration has been changed. Now, I can go and I can write a policy for her because she'll have to show proof of insurance, but he has to go and make sure that that name has been changed. It has been changed on the deed or on the lien, and then we can get the policy in her name. When I got divorced, I didn't have a clue. My ex went and wrote an auto policy, had it written for me, and then just sent it to me. And I didn't know what the heck that was. I was mad because I didn't get to choose. He just did it. So that you have to know what it is you're going to have insured. And you just step back and you go to an insurance agent, talk to them. They can tell you.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that's for the policy.
Yeah.
For a car policy. Now, what if you have children?
So here's what we have this happen quite a bit, because if you have an inexperienced driver on your policy, it's very expensive.
Now,
okay?
what does an inexperienced driver mean?
So kids usually get their driver's license at 16. From 16 to 19, 3 years, that's considered inexperienced. That means you have no experience. So that driver's going to rate higher as far as premium goes on a policy. It can even double it sometimes. starting July 1st in North Carolina. Usually it had been in the past rated for 3 years. It's going to be moved up to rated for 8 years. A person will be considered an inexperienced driver. Yeah.
Oh my gosh, you're kidding.
Oh yeah. So this is what we have happen. So a dad calls up or mom and says, we're changing around the autos for our kids. My daughter, she's living with me, but my other daughter, she wants to live with her dad. So what you do is you make sure whatever vehicles, if they have their own vehicles, that those are on each parent's policy. In my case, my daughters were written on their dad's policy. So they didn't get their own car right away, but they were on his policy. He paid it. It showed that they lived with him, even though my kids would go back and forth. That's how it was listed. But let's say you're in 2 different states and you would have to make sure that child is listed on the parent that kid's going to be with, let them stay there. That kid is there on that policy. And then if they go back and forth, just make sure that there is one policy that child is always on. Sometimes, because if they get divorced when the kids are younger, that's something that's not even thought about. So it would come up later. You guys have to decide, parents have to decide how that's going to be handled.
So if
a lawyer wouldn't know to tell you about that.
Children have their own cars,
so
they shouldn't have their own policy written in their name. It should still be in a parent's name.
Hey, I didn't hear what you said. I'm sorry. There was a disconnect in the connection there, Lori. Can you hear me?
Yes. So if kids have their own cars, they do not have policies written in their names.
No,
they
because
still
they're
should be under the parents' names.
Right. Well, they're under 18.
Okay.
They can't have a policy written in their name.
Okay.
So most of the time they are on a parent's policy. So that's how that works. And most of the time they don't have their own cars. They are just written as an additional driver on the car that the parent has.
Oh, gotcha. Yeah. Makes sense.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. That makes perfect sense. All right. So then is there anything else about like when it comes to that needs to be said before we move on to home?
I would just say you always, if they're in college, you need to make sure that the garaging address is discussed. Where's that car being garaged at? It'll be addressed on the auto policy. And you always need to let your agent know, because if the car has gone off to Boone, say, for Appalachian, and we think the car is always here in Charlotte, then that's not correct information. And that could affect the policy if something happens.
But it is still okay. Like when they go, the policy doesn't have to be changed just because they go to college.
No.
You just need to inform your agent.
Yes, there's a little box that says, where's this car garaged? And you can have a different address on there that the car is garaged if the student is off and away to school. Yeah.
I mean, things seem such second nature to you because this is your field and you know this stuff. But I mean, honestly, for us people that, don't do this stuff, I know I'm probably sounding like I'm asking questions like, well, duh, everybody should know that. But I feel like a lot of us don't. I mean, maybe I'm incredibly crazy.
I wouldn't have known until I got into the industry.
Yeah.
I wouldn't have known. I wouldn't have had a clue.
Right.
So you're always learning. I had to learn everything. And the question is, how do you know what you don't know? Well, you call your agent and review your policies. You tell them what's going on in your life. So that will generate other conversations that they'll have for you. If there's something happening, you find out you're going through a divorce, you call your agent right away because we already know the property is going to be split up. We've had cases where one of the spouses has called and canceled a policy and the other spouse had no idea. And so now they're driving around without insurance. And that's obvious.
Do you guys not have to check? Like if there is more than one person on a policy, does it only take one person to cancel it?
Well, the person that's in the number one position can have the authority to cancel it. If some of the policies will say, well, do person in number one and number two both have authority over the policy? We check yes. But when stuff like that happens, when incidences like that occur, the person calling to cancel the policy hasn't told us they're going through a divorce or anything. We don't know. And if they haven't mentioned it, we're just canceling the policy because that means they've gone and gotten another one someplace else, and they'll tell us that. So we can get fooled too.
Yeah. Okay, let me ask you this. Can you, if one person, the top person, is in complete authority, but you are now going through a divorce, can the other person that's on the policy call and say, hey, I want to also have complete authority over this to double check? Or does that person that's in complete authority have to authorize that person?
That person can call and ask us questions. They're
Okay.
on it. They're additional insured.
Because I feel like, there are circumstances when things are not pretty during a divorce, and that person of authority may call to do something just to wreak havoc on the second person. So I just wonder, when people are watching this, if they know they're going to be going through this, or they're going through it now and they're like, gosh, I have no idea if I have authority over this policy or not. If they called and said, hey, we're going through a divorce, I want to make sure I'm notified.
Right.
If anybody calls to cancel this policy, you can't do that.
Right. They would need to know, let their agent know that they should have been listed as an additional insured, not an additional driver. It's two different things. And that way, when you're an additional insured, your name shows up on that ID card that you have. An additional driver's name does not show up on the ID card.
And it doesn't, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
No, you're fine.
It doesn't take the person that's in authority, the number one person, it doesn't take their okay or permission to get moved from a driver to an insurable.
Insured.
An insured.
So if we see two people that are that are insured, they're both on the card, we have no reason to move them to just an additional driver.
Can you go the other way though, if they're just listed as a
but
driver?
the only way, yeah, we can do that if the car is registered in that person's name.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And usually the cars are either registered in the name of the first person and the second person together, or we have, it's just one car can be registered in just the first person. When the agent is going through the entire policy, we have to identify which car is being operated by which individual.
Gotcha.
So that person, both the insured and the additional insured, call in and ask questions about their policy.
Okay.
Yeah.
So the bottom line is, if you're going through a divorce, when it comes to your car insurance, call and talk to and see how everything's laid out. Let them know what's going on, and then they can advise you as to what needs to be done.
Yeah, that scenario I gave you about somebody calling in and canceling the policies, that happened to the husband called in, canceled all the policies, and the wife was on them. We had no clue that they were going through a divorce. And so he just said he wanted to cancel. He'd found other insurance and he moved everything. Months later, the wife called in and she was wanting to get everything moved back to our agency. And she told us she has gone through a divorce and that he moved everything. And I had to tell her, I can't do that unless you can show that the car is registered in your name now. The house is deeded to you. Your name's on the mortgage. Yeah. And she couldn't come back to us because she was going to have to go and approach him or approach his lawyer.
Right.
We had another instance where the couple went through divorce and we had separated everything out, and it's kind of the home, the mortgage had the wife's name on it. Now, because the wife's name was still on the mortgage, we had to keep her name on the policy, and it had to be on there until the ex-husband had gone and gotten her name removed from the mortgage. And I had to go tell him, I'm sorry, we have to leave her name on here because her name is on the mortgage. And once her name is off the mortgage, then I can remove her name.
Okay, so that is a really good segue then. Let's move from auto insurance to homeowners insurance.
Yes.
Okay, and you've already kind of touched on it. So what you're saying is, if you are going through and having a separation agreement or a court order or whatever written up, and when it comes to the part about the home, if it isn't specified in there, like let's just say that they agree to let whoever lives in the home currently stay in there for another year until, or either refinance it or whatever be the case.
Okay.
But nothing is done as far as both names are still on the mortgage, both names are on the deed to the home, but the person that lives in the home is solely responsible for taking care of the home. Everything, paying the mortgage, the upkeep, repairs, whatever. That's all with the person that's keeping the home. So that person keeping the home calls you, their insurance is through you, and calls you and says, hey, I'm getting the house. It says I've got the house. So I want to make sure that my ex, who doesn't live here anymore, no longer gets any information. If I add insurance, take away insurance, whatever I do, I want his or her name taken off the thing. You're telling me that it's either or, like if it's on the mortgage but not the deed, the not mortgage, or both. If it's on either the deed or the mortgage, then it has to stay on the homeowner's insurance policy.
Correct.
Is that correct?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay. See, I mean, who would know that?
Exactly. Yeah.
Who would know that? Okay, so if they stay on the policy, that gives them the right to still do whatever they want to do with the policy?
We could have notes if there's some so I had this example happen. The wife had a restraining order against the husband. The husband was still, they were getting the lawyer was doing everything the right way, getting everything and putting the wife's name, vehicles and such. We had a special note that we could not discuss anything with the ex. Everything had been moved into her, but even if he called in, because they were together here in our office with their policies, we could not discuss anything with her. Now, she did have another car and she wanted to move it, and I had to tell her, you need to get it in your name. Can't do anything until you get it in your name. I can't do anything until you show me a document that his name is off of the registration. Mm-hmm. So we have to make very detailed notes about that kind of thing and make sure we follow those regulations.
Now, I'm sorry. I mean, I keep
interrupting
you're fine.
You.
I'm sorry. Things come to my head. Okay, so I think I discussed this with you before, and I think you debunked this or something, but what if that same example I just gave you exists? So they're divorced. The out spouse who no longer lives in the home is either on the deed or the mortgage. He's still on the they're still on the policy. I keep saying he, but whoever it is still on the policy. And what if there is a hailstorm that comes through or a leak or something like that, and whoever's living in the home puts in a claim? Okay. Who is going to, are you going to just talk to the wife? Can you discuss that with the husband? Could the check for the amount by mistake be sent to the out spouse because their name is still on the policy?
So it would go, as far as address is concerned, if both people's name is still on the house in some way, either mortgage or on the deed, we would still have that on the policy. We would have the policy address on the home. What could happen is a claim check could be could go to both parties in their name, like Mr. and Mrs. John, whatever is on the policy. That's what could happen. We would never send the carrier would never send a check, because if there's a claim, once the claim is called in, we are not involved. The adjuster from the carrier is involved. So the claim would be sent to the person who's in the house. Then if both names are on the policy, it'd be made out to both names. And I've always just talked to whoever called in the claim. If that other person called in, we would talk to them if their name had never been off the policy. But when I'm calling in a claim and if there were a situation like that, I would make a note to say, okay, this is who you need to talk to. I always let them know who to talk to. They are going through a divorce, but the person's name is still on the policy. They still have to follow on the policy.
Okay, so because I do know through my time of doing this that the out spouse did cash a check for a claim for something that the wife had turned in, a claim the wife had turned in. And I never understood how that happened. But it very easily, I mean, if they are still a part of coming into the home, I mean, if somebody was deceitful and the check came in and they needed both signatures because, you know, if one of them had signed it and then the other took it and signed it, they could go cash that check and never do
Yes.
the repair. And that must be what happened in
Yeah.
that circumstance. So, but you really can't resolve that until you get, and you know, getting the name off a deed, doing that quit claim deed would take care of that. But getting it off the mortgage, you know, is not as easy,
Right.
especially, you know, when you're trying to refinance and things like that.
Exactly.
So that makes it a little bit more difficult.
Yeah, we had a couple going through a divorce and they were separated, and the husband was staying with us as the client, and they had not removed her name yet from the home. They had not removed her jewelry. She called in a claim saying she lost her, I think it was a ring, diamond ring, right? And a claim was issued. The check, the husband received it at the house, and he called and said, I don't understand why I'm receiving this check. And he said, this is the first I've heard about her losing the ring, and she had made a false claim. So,
My goodness.
yes.
Did she get in trouble for that?
I don't know. After that, I have no idea. But the person did close the claim and sent the check back. Yeah, because you
Okay.
can do that. You can say, I don't want to continue with the claim. It will show up whenever we pull reports as a $0 claim, at which time you should let your agent know. If it's a good agent, they should be calling you, having you explain what was this for, or they should know and have notes. Yeah.
Well, and last, what about if you do not take the money for the check, you know, if it's a roof, whatever it might
Mhm.
be, and you do not actually get that roof fixed, what constitutes an open claim? Because if there is an open claim on the policy, isn't it true that a potential, and you put your house up for sale, a potential buyer cannot get homeowners insurance on that home? It's uninsurable.
Well, I know that I've never had that instance to happen, that incident, but I do know that past claims can show up on, let's say you were going out and buying a house and I ran reports and it pulled in this big water claim, but you're just now buying it. I would call you, say, hey, do you know anything about this claim? And you happen to know, oh yeah, this belonged to the people who used to live here. So it's pulling in according to the address. At that point, I would let the underwriter know so we could delete that, or, you know, let them know that wasn't your claim. Now, if I'm trying to think if we've had any issues where something like that similar has happened. You can have multiple claims on a house and we pull it and you can get denied. If we were to run one and we still saw a claim that was open, we would start digging into what was going on.
Now, open, does that mean the check hasn't been cashed, or that means that the
It,
repair wasn't
it can
done?
mean a
What does
lot of
open?
things. It can mean a lot of things.
Okay.
So it can mean, so that means the adjuster hasn't gotten to the point where they have closed the policy closed the claim for some reason. Okay. And that
Okay.
can take a long time depending on what's going on. And the carrier will contact the agent and have us confirm with the owner if a work has been done. And they'll ask us to send invoices. So we'll ask the homeowner to send invoices so that we can send them.
So a potential buyer could be denied coverage if there is an open claim on a house they're wanting to buy.
Could be.
Okay. Okay. And one last thing, tell us about a clue report.
So a clue is just going to tell us, and it's for home or auto. It's going to tell us if there's been any claims on the property. As it regards to auto, it's looking at tickets, claims. We also have in auto the MVR, which is the moving vehicle report. Or motor vehicle report, sorry about that. And it tells us if there's been any tickets, DUIs, things like that. If it's showing me a clue, then what I'm going to go and do is confirm everything with the person who's on the policy. If it's an MVR and it's showing up there's been some major speeding and everything, I can't do anything about that. I can let the owner know that they need to contact LexisNexis, which is a consumer reporting agency. If they want to contest it, they have to go do that themselves. We do have people that sometimes will do that. again, we don't handle that as an agency. We'll just let you know what's going on.
And if you are a homeowner, you can go to that same website and pull the clue report yourself, right? Just to
Yes.
see
Yeah.
what has happened since you took it. And it's just for the life of the home since you've been in it. Is that correct?
That part I'm not exactly sure.
Yeah. I was thinking
You're going to put in your name, your information, your address, and it's going to pull information about you.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it's just from the life of the home since you took over the ownership of the home, I believe.
But I have incidences where we pull the clue and it can have another person show up on the policy, like if it's a car thing, or somebody that used to live there show up. So that's why it's important for us to go through and make sure we validate everything, contact the client and find out.
Right. I mean, I just feel like the moral of this story is if you are separating or going through a divorce, you need to get to know your insurance agent
Really
and
well.
be upfront and honest and let them know what's going on so that they can advise you.
Yes.
Because when it's only people like you that are in the field that just like I know things about divorce real estate that other people don't know, you know things about insurance because that is your job, that is your expertise, and you're good at your job. And every insurance agent is not created equally. So, just like anything else, is you need to make sure you are dealing with top-notch
Correct.
individuals.
Exactly. Yeah.
Well, is there anything that you want to add that we didn't cover that
Let me see. I'm just looking over my list.
yeah, no,
So
definitely.
I would just make sure that if the person has a home auto and if they have an umbrella policy, which goes over the home and the umbrella, that they may need to make sure the spouse is off of that
Okay.
policy as well. They need to make sure if there's a number of vehicles, one is going away to the spouse, the ex, that vehicle's off the umbrella. And then all the policies should be written only in the name of the person who is staying where they are.
Right, exactly. That is good advice. Okay, I'm going to put your contact information
Sure.
at the end of this podcast, but just kind of tell everybody where they can get a hold of you if they want to reach out to you.
So if they want to email me, it's at kim.coleman@foglegroup.com, or they can call the office at
I think you have probably opened a lot of people's eyes. I know you did mine when I originally talked to you about this. And I can't thank you enough for being a guest of mine today because I feel like you might have helped some people dodge some divorce disasters by knowing this information.
If I can tell you one more thing.
Of course.
Okay. It's always better to have a broker, insurance broker, than an individual agent that just handles one carrier. Does that make sense?
Explain a little bit more.
So if you have a broker usually has access to multiple carriers. That means we can shop it with multiple carriers. We can look at it. We can help the couple who's going through divorce. Maybe this isn't going to be the right fit for just the single parent, and we might need to move them somewhere. Then it's better than to do that, to have the broker than to stay with an agency that only represents one carrier.
So is that a question that just needs to be asked, or is there a way for you to know?
Well,
like if I look at Fogle Insurance, I wouldn't know necessarily.
But you would know, you would go to the website and you would see that we are a broker. We have multiple carriers. You're going to know it. If you see the brokers are not going to be advertised on TV, but look at the other insurance carriers that are advertised on TV, and that's a good way
That's
to know
good
it.
to know. That is really good advice because I would have no idea about that.
Yes.
Okay, perfect. Well, thank you so much. It's been a
You are
pleasure to see
welcome.
you again and to talk to you. And I know this information is going to be extremely useful.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I hope you have a great day.
Okay, you too. Thanks, Kim.
Yeah. Bye.
This podcast is for informational and entertainment purposes only. Information contained herein is not legal advice. If you need legal advice, please seek an attorney.